Distributech 2023, one of the sponsors of these interviews. And these are interviews with thought leaders from around North America and the globe. Our sponsors are H2 Scan. H2 Scan is the leading sensor manufacturer for hydrogen sensing in a lot of different applications, in transformers, in battery room safety, in processes and safety, in industrial, and in the future hydrogen economy. So I want to thank our sponsors, and I want to thank all of our guests, and I hope you enjoy this interview. My next guest is David Costello. He is the CSSO, I just gave you that new one, Chief Sales and Service Officer at Schweitzer Engineering and Consulting. Schweitzer does a lot of different things, but David, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Al.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Since you're at Schweitzer, because I respect the company very much, right?
Oh, thank you very much.
I'm going to tell you, you're now going to have to tell me what the problems are in this industry, but first, tell me how you got in the power industry and how you got to be the CSSO of Schweitzer.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for having us again. It's a pleasure to be here. My dad was in the electric power industry. So the honest answer is my dad was an engineer, actually started as a draftsman, a draftsperson in the 1950s after getting out of the Air Force. Went back to college, got an electrical engineering degree, and went to work for City Public Service, now CPS Energy in San Antonio. We retired as the Vice President of Engineering and Operations many years ago in 1991. Dad's 92, but we still kicking,
yeah.
still likes to talk about electric power. And that's how I was exposed. So I had some jobs growing up in and around the industry. Went to Texas A&M, got an electrical engineering degree, and went to work for an electric utility. It was a customer of SEL's. That's how I came to know about SEL.
Right.
And then I joined SEL in 1996 as an application engineer. Have done a lot of different things with the company, and now have the position you just mentioned.
Excellent. And so the role that you're in now, how long have you been in that role?
Well, it's kind of evolved. I've been in and around sales for quite some time. So that since global responsibility since 2017. I took on engineering services, which is our consulting engineering arm, in 2019, and then recently took on marketing activities just at the end of last year.
One of the smartest things anybody has ever done is to put the service business into the sales and marketing. So sales doesn't sell what you can't produce, and people must produce what sales sells, right?
Yeah,
it's a pretty good thing.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
So you do get to see, because of the consulting part of engineering consulting, you get to see a lot of utilities doing a lot of things. What are the main problems that we're facing today? Last year in IEEE, we did these interviews. Number one across the board was supply chain. They're still here, but we have a whole bunch of new, let's call them challenges that we're facing in the power industry. Talk about them.
Well, one of the things you notice on the Distributech International floor this year is a lot of product and services related to electrification of vehicles, EV charging, smart charging, helping utilities do that in a good way. That's great, but if we're really going to convert over an entire country's fleet of vehicles to electricity, we're going to need a lot more capacity, a lot more generation, a lot more infrastructure. So, balancing the goals of electrification of vehicles with the actual demand in the supply for all that demand is a big challenge.
So that's the demand curve size that we really didn't think about 5 years ago. I mean, power demand has been pretty flat.
Pretty steady, yeah, slow to steady, right?
Now we look like we got a hockey stick, right? You're starting to see it.
Some estimates 30 to 50% more generation required for that EV charging.
And we're getting rid of generation, like
which
coal.
Doesn't help.
People don't like the fact that nuclear's there, although we are extending it. But
yeah, so that's a good point. So another challenge, of course, is as we have shared goals to get clean and green, we really need to make sure that power is dependable, available, and cost effective.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it needs to be cost effective for the least among us, because these great policies can be like regressive taxes to the least among us.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. just taken off, and the IRA came in, which is a stupid name, the Inflation Reduction Act, right? For potentially a great policy, but what a stupid name. Okay, it's got nothing to do with inflation.
Yeah, or reducing it.
Reducing it, that's right. Yeah. It was an act, but tell me how you think
agree,
that
yes.
is, how that is impact, because that's a policy change
it is.
Of tremendous magnitude. How's that going to change the pace of change?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that many of those dollars and funding have really washed on shore yet.
Yeah.
A lot of that's aspirational and directives and subsidies and money pushing to different places. But I don't know that it's really hit yet. Same thing with the electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, I think you can obviously see in different markets that taking off, but still a very small percentage of total vehicles purchased and consumed and driven on the roads. So I think we're just kind of scratching the surface of some of that infrastructure and money coming into the industry.
I call it the Henry Ford dilemma. So Henry starts mass producing cars, right?
Yeah.
But he needs gasoline, so he makes a deal with Standard Oil, with Rockefeller, and says, look, I'll sell cars, dealership, where you put gasoline stations.
Yeah.
And ultimately they covered the U.S. We have the same problem. People worry about charging their vehicle. I've rented a couple of electric vehicles. I will never do it again.
Yeah, were you able to continue the vacation? Yeah, it's tough.
And I wasn't doing the 240-mile trip, right? But
and interestingly enough, electric vehicles were around 100 years ago.
Yes, they were.
And batteries were around 100 plus years ago.
I know.
You don't know because you were there. You're
just
saying
I know
you've read about
I know the history.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Yeah, no, but I mean, batteries aren't new, windmills aren't new, electric vehicles aren't new. But to your point earlier, things, they're changing and changing at a pretty quick pace. And so that's another challenge. You asked about challenges. We're integrating all of these new sources, but they bring their own set of challenges to traditional protection and control schemes. Inverter-based resources or solar and wind farms don't produce the same fault current that a physical rotating mass steam turbine generator does. They don't really follow the laws of physics, they follow the laws of whoever programmed the power electronics interface. And that can be different across a spectrum of manufacturers. So that's a challenge. We have to figure out, how do you detect a fault when that percentage of generation becomes overwhelming? We've got the obvious problem of availability. Right now, we tend to price kilowatt hours as if they're all equal. But of course, there's something to be said for having a component of cost be related to the availability and dependability of the source. So I think we'll figure this stuff out, and it'll levelize. But those are some of the challenges we're all facing.
As it relates to electrification of transportation, some parts of the country are moving faster than other parts. Obviously, we're in California, so California is moving pretty fast by trying to change the demand curve. By a certain amount, you won't sell an ICE vehicle here. One of the changes, is I'm going to really switch gears on you, hydrogen. One of our sponsors is H2 Scan. It's a hydrogen sense. They've been around 20 years. They're ubiquitous in pretty much every transformer manufacturer that has a monitor, whether it's 9 gas or 2 gas or 1 gas, it's H2 Scan's monitor, because they do it, and they do it really well. They are also in the nascent hydrogen economy, right? So we keep talking about the hydrogen economy. My joke is, it's the future, and it always will be.
Right.
Will hydrogen have an impact on all of this that we're talking about? Will it play a role, you think?
Yeah, I think it'll play a role. I don't know that it's the future, and I wouldn't invest everything on it being the future.
Well, I'm taking the stocks out. I'm selling the stocks.
We should say none of this is sanctioned investment advice, right? Interestingly enough, we were having dinner with a utility last night, and they were talking about a hydrogen generation project that they were involved with. But interestingly enough, the supply for that generation had to be brought over by diesel train from its location. So it is one of those, like, the irony is not lost on you, that you're going green, but you have to bring the green fuel source from somewhere else on a diesel train.
Dirty green, not clean green.
So it's just one of those things. So if you're asking me what the far off future is, I really think we're going to see nuclear become a bigger part of our generation source. I don't think renewables are going away, but I don't think you can have an honest discussion about base load and taking our generation times 1.3 or 1.5 for vehicle electrification and all of the things we're talking about, and expect the lights to turn on when you flip the switch, no matter what the weather is or the wind or the sun, without talking about especially small-scale nuclear.
Right. Okay, well, that's interesting, because I think the Germans have developed some small-scale nuclear that are much safer, much more cost-effective, easy to build, and there's still reluctance to it, especially in the the environmentalists think it's the worst thing in the world.
Sure. Well, I understand that, and do not make light of being safe. But my dad, when he was in the industry, helped bring South Texas nuclear plant online in Texas. There's an awful lot of Navy ships out here floating around San Diego.
Yeah.
We could probably find some sailors to talk about, how they're going to sea on a lot of their fleet, and they've been using nuclear for an awful long time.
Yeah,
so I think there's something there.
Jack Nicholas, who's a dear friend, he's about 90, one of the finest electrical engineers, a reliability guru, helped make the nuclear submarine fleet safe because they kept having problems and they would sink. But now, nuclear subs are everywhere, and I remember him telling me the story about it. It was brilliant. So we looked at current problems, we looked at some of the future problems. One of the current problems that we haven't addressed is staff shortages, labor issues. You got to see that everywhere.
Yeah. It's a weird and unprecedented labor market. It's challenging. And then looking ahead at how we're going to continue that, there's a lot going on. It's not easy to get a visa for somebody if you can't hire somebody locally and you would like to go abroad and bring somebody to the United States and match up with somebody who desperately would like to be here to grow their career and life. It's not real easy. So there's that. I think we could look to our friends in Washington, D.C. to maybe help with our immigration policy. But I think it's really, really important to talk about the critical nature of our business. And I think people like to have a purpose. They like to understand why they go to work and how invaluable it is. So when we're trying to drum up interest with young people to go into STEM and to maybe pursue a technical career, and this cleaning up the environment, making sure people have power, because let's face it, where you have safe, affordable, reliable electric power, people are safer, they're healthier, they live longer, education's better, smarter, they're more productive, their economies grow. Is it a guarantee? No, but there sure is strong correlation between the two. So I think it's important to teach that to young people, that value of purpose and how important this is. I think it's important that we start early, like K through 12, get in there and get early. We used to sponsor a robotics team at our local high school when I lived in Oklahoma, and that was great fun. It's a great way to see that spark. And now I see it in my son, who's a 15-and-a-half-year-old and doing cool things with electronics. So I've got a lot of faith that next generation will be just fine. But I think it's our job to light that fire, show them why it's important, and get them plugged in. And that mentorship and training and development never ends. I guess that's the last point, is it's important to always learn, always teach, and keep growing.
Learn it, do it, teach it. This industry never used to be sexy. It was never one, you came into the utility industry and you had a 30, 40-year career and it was great and it was consistent, right? Today you can make a case for you're changing the world and you're making it better. And young people like your son, my kids are in their 30s, one of the things they want now more than ever is to make a difference. I want to do something with my career that makes a positive difference. Yep. This industry is that place to do that.
It is. Yeah. I absolutely agree. And there's times, silly examples and more critical examples that I could tell you, or even my son has learned this. So a year ago, 2021, we had a winter storm come through Texas.
Yeah, we all know about it.
And we were without power for a little bit, and it was pretty brutal. Yeah. So you want to, and then just this past week, we had an ice storm, and our house was without power for about 24 hours. And I was traveling at the time, but I get a notice on my phone when the Wi-Fi's down at the house. So you want to hear about an emergency to a 15-and-a-half-year-old is know that the Wi-Fi's down. And then we start talking about why.
It's end of the world stuff.
It's end of the world stuff. And then, of course, son, of course the Wi-Fi's down. There's no electricity. Have you noticed that the lights are out too? And he's like, oh yeah, I do notice it. So I'm being a little facetious, but they get it. He gets it, and it's great fun. There's big challenges, and it has a huge impact on everybody.
You've kind of touched on this because you're global, right?
We are
a global thing.
We serve about customers in almost 170 countries around the world.
So as you get above 35,000 feet, you're looking down at the Earth. Well, actually, even higher than that, and you see the different regions. Let's call it. You see the change in the different regions. Are we coming to a point where we can positively impact Africa? We can positively impact the Middle East. We can make a positive change and do it through the power industry, because everybody needs. I mean, you put lights in a village in Africa, you have education, you change the lives of everybody else. But are we moving in a positive direction as a result of all of this decarbonization? Is there you get to see it, or are we just kind of disparate? North America does its thing, South America does its thing.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions and a whole day in that.
You don't have a
topic.
Whole day, but
no,
I need you to.
The whole decarbonization thing reminds me, we're all in this together, right? So if you and I here in the United States or sitting in San Diego decide to fix the world's problem in a vacuum all by ourselves, we're not going to get very far. Right, so everybody needs to get on board with that, but it has to, we also have to be pragmatic. There's developing countries that are installing coal-fired generation units as fast as they can build them, and you have to ask why. Do they really want to pollute the environment? No, but having safe, reliable, affordable electric power that they didn't have previously is so critical to safety and health and well-being and everything, right? So there's got to be a balance in there, right? You can't like our cleaning up can't come at the detriment of the developing world.
And their need for power can't come at the pollution, because if you build a core-fire plant in China, it goes up into the atmosphere. It doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, sure. We all share, right? Yeah. So that's what I mean. We're all in this together. So, but I have a lot of faith in creativity, innovation, and invention, and sometimes in the old saying, hello, we're from the government, we're here to help. Sometimes you want to scream, we've got this. If just left to some free market forces, we tend to make electric power safer, more reliable, more economical, more green, more clean, because ultimately, I believe it's in our best interest, our best shared interest.
And one of the things governments can do is enact policies that help that, as opposed to policies that prevent that.
Yeah. And I think everybody's got good intentions, but sometimes government policy has a tendency of forcing winners and losers, and can drive unintended consequences always.
Yeah, that's good. David, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
David has been a great guest. That's why you're CSSO, because you have a global perspective of a unique problem.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
This has been an APC Technologies production, and we thank you for joining us. Our sponsors have been H2 Scan and Distributech. And of course, the communities of APC Technologies, which is Transform Technology, Power Systems Technology, Green Energy Technology, and Women in Power Systems. So thank you.